My name is Laura Collins. I'm 34 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I had always thought my life was like everyone else's, a mix of ordinary days and quiet, simple joys. I had a job I loved, working as a marketing director at a small but promising tech firm in the city. I had a passion for helping companies grow, for shaping ideas into something real. I was the kind of person who believed in hard work, trust, and above all, commitment. To me, those were the things that built not just careers, but lives, especially the life I had built with my husband, Ryan. Ryan and I met during my first year at college. He was the guy who always made me laugh, the one who could turn a bad day into something tolerable. We were inseparable. Our relationship was built on those moments, the late-night conversations, the shared dreams of a future, the plans to grow old together. We got married when I was 28. A small ceremony with just our closest friends and family. I thought it was the beginning of a fairy tale. We'd talked about having children, buying a house, traveling the world together. I believed, without a doubt, that we would build our lives together, until everything changed. At 32, just after our third anniversary, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It felt like the world had shifted beneath me, as though the ground itself had opened up and swallowed all my certainties. I remember the doctor's words, how they hung in the air like a heavy weight that I couldn't escape. I tried to stay strong for myself, for Ryan, but the truth was, the diagnosis shattered me. It shook me in a way I couldn't have prepared for. But what truly shook me, what completely destroyed my sense of security, was what happened next. Ryan wasn't the person I thought he was. At least, not the person I had married. I remember the night it all fell apart. It was a week after my diagnosis, just after my first round of chemotherapy. I was exhausted, barely able to lift my head from the pillow. I had hoped he'd be there, holding my hand, offering comfort as I tried to make sense of this new reality. But instead, there was nothing. No comforting words, no presence. Just a text message. It was simple, short and to the point. I didn't sign up for this. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. The words felt like a slap, like a betrayal that I never expected. The one person I had believed would stand by me, who had promised to love me through sickness and health, was the one who was walking away. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about my marriage crumbled. It was as if all the years of shared memories, of plans and dreams, had been wiped away by one simple, heartless sentence. I couldn't believe it. The man I had spent years loving, the one I had built a life with, was telling me, without even the decency of a face-to-face conversation, that he wasn't willing to stick around. That my battle with cancer was too much for him. That I was somehow too much for him. The man who had promised to be by my side through thick and thin was gone. And I was left there, alone, vulnerable, with nothing but the cold glow of my phone screen and an empty bed. For a while, I just sat there in disbelief. How could he? How could someone I had trusted, someone who knew everything about me, the good, the bad, the ugly, just walk away when I needed him most? It was as if none of it mattered. All our promises, all our years together, meant nothing to him when the first challenge appeared. But here's the thing about betrayal, it changes you. It doesn't just hurt, it transforms something inside of you. The helplessness, the heartbreak, the sense of abandonment, it all starts to twist into something else. Something darker. Something you never thought you'd be capable of. And that's when I realized something. I wasn't just going to let this define me. I wasn't going to let Ryan's cruelty be the end of my story. No, this wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something else. And he didn't know it yet, but I was going to make sure he never forgot how he treated me. The days that followed the text were a blur. My body was exhausted from chemotherapy, from the treatments that left me drained and fragile. But my heart, that was a different story. It felt like I was carrying the weight of 1,000 bricks. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was that simple, cruel message: I didn't sign up for this. Ryan left the house shortly after. I don't know if he packed a suitcase or if he just walked out without a second thought. All I knew was that he was gone, and it was as though a part of me had gone with him. I tried to reach out, of course. I tried to call him, to make sense of what had happened. But there was no answer. No messages. Just silence. And I started to realize something that made my stomach churn. He had made his decision, and I was no longer a part of it. It wasn't just the fact that he had left. It wasn't just the abandonment or the betrayal that hurt the most. What really stung was that it was so easy for him. One moment, we were a team, fighting through life's challenges together, and the next, he was gone. He hadn't even bothered to be there when I needed him. The man I had trusted, the man I had built a life with, had turned his back on me at the first sign of hardship. And all I had was his cold, final words to remind me of it. But it wasn't just the divorce that stung, it was the knowledge that he was already moving on. As I lay in bed one night, scrolling through the few remaining pictures we had together, I came across something that would change everything. Ryan had been seeing someone else. I didn't find this out through some accidental discovery, I found it through a mutual friend, someone who had the courage to tell me the truth. Laura, I didn't want to be the one to say it, but I saw Ryan with someone. A few weeks ago. It's serious, Laura. He's been seeing her for months. My heart dropped into my stomach. I felt like I was suffocating. It was one thing to leave me, but to replace me so easily? It was as if all of our time together had meant nothing. I confronted him again, this time, face to face. I didn't want to be weak anymore. I didn't want to be the woman who sat at home and let him walk all over me. I wanted answers. And I wasn't going to back down until I got them. I found him at a bar with his new girlfriend, her hand in his, the same smile I used to get when we were together. When he saw me walk in, his face went pale. He tried to make excuses, tried to explain away his actions. But I wasn't listening anymore. What's her name? I asked, my voice cutting through the noise of the bar. He hesitated for a moment, but when he saw that I wasn't going to let this go, he finally mumbled, her name's Rachel. I looked at Rachel, the woman who had taken my place. She didn't seem to notice the quiet storm that was brewing in me, her gaze soft, unaware of the turmoil she was unknowingly a part of. But I wasn't angry at her. She didn't know the depth of the betrayal. It wasn't her fault. It was Ryan. He had done this to me. I turned and walked away without saying another word. But inside, something was shifting. A quiet storm, one that had been building ever since I got that text. Ryan had taken everything from me, my trust, my future, my sense of self. And now, he was replacing me as if I never existed. I couldn't just let him get away with this. No, I wouldn't. That night, as I lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, the plan started to take shape. I knew I couldn't just get angry and confront him again. That wouldn't change anything. He wouldn't be the one to feel the pain he had caused me. No, I was going to make him understand. But how? How could I make him feel the same pain? How could I make him regret what he had done to me? I thought back to all the years we had spent together, the memories, the promises. I had given him everything. And he had thrown it all away for someone else. But there was something he didn't understand. No one walks away from me. No one betrays me and gets off scot-free. The first step of my plan was to make him regret his decision, and the second was to expose him for who he really was. He wasn't the man I had once married. He wasn't the man who promised to love me no matter what. He was a liar, a coward, and a man who had used me for his own comfort. And I was going to make sure the world knew it. I started to gather information, piecing together the details of his affair, looking for anything that would tear down the perfect image he had built for himself. I contacted the same friend who had told me about Rachel. She gave me more details than I could have hoped for, where they went, when they met, even photos they had taken together. I wasn't going to keep this to myself. If Ryan thought he could move on without any consequences, he was about to be proven wrong. But it wasn't just about exposing him. No, I had something more calculated in mind. I would make sure he lost everything, his reputation, his image, his comfort. I wanted him to feel the pain he had caused me, the kind of pain that came from realizing that you had destroyed something that couldn't be replaced. And then, there was the final step of my plan, the one that would hit him the hardest. I was going to take back everything he thought he had stolen from me. It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just the house or the possessions. No, it was something deeper. It was the life we had planned together, the future we had both believed in. I was going to show him that I didn't need him. That I could walk away, rebuild, and live a life without him. He would see that I didn't need him to be happy. I didn't need him to succeed. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my power. And Ryan had no idea what was coming for him. The day of the confrontation came sooner than I expected, but I wasn't going to hesitate anymore. By the time I had gathered all the pieces of my plan, Ryan was living in a world where he thought he had gotten away with it. But I wasn't going to let that happen. He thought I was weak, thought I would just fade away into the background, hurt and forgotten. What he didn't know was that the woman he had abandoned was rising from the ashes. I was no longer the woman he married, I was someone stronger. Someone more dangerous. I arranged the meeting with Ryan in a place that was quiet, far from the distractions of the world. I knew he would be caught off guard. I didn't want him to see this coming, just like he hadn't seen his betrayal coming. It was in a park, one that we used to visit together. The same one where we had our first date. I figured it was fitting. Everything had come full circle. The place where our love had begun would now be the place where he'd realize what he had lost. When he arrived, he looked as calm as ever. His hair was styled neatly, his suit crisp and flawless, just like he always liked it. But there was an edge to his face that wasn't there before, the kind of nervous energy that only comes from knowing you're about to face something you didn't plan for. He smiled, trying to mask the discomfort, but I saw right through him. "I didn't think you'd call me here," Ryan said, his voice still carrying that smooth tone that had once drawn me to him. "I know," I replied, my voice steady. "You're probably wondering why I wanted to meet." I looked at him for a moment, taking in the man who had once been everything to me. He still had that charm, that smile that could light up a room, but I no longer felt the same. The trust one had placed in him, the love I had given him, it was all gone. But it was more than that now. It was power. I felt stronger than I ever had before, and I wasn't going to back down. Ryan took a seat in front of me, his eyes flickering with curiosity. He must have been wondering what I was up to. And I wanted him to wonder. I wanted him to be on edge, to feel the tension that had been building inside of me ever since I had discovered his affair. "What's going on, Laura?" "I know this is about the divorce, but what else is there to say?" he asked, clearly trying to regain control of the conversation. I gave him a cold smile, leaning forward. "Actually, Ryan, it's about more than just the divorce. You see, I've had a lot of time to think, about what you did, about who you are now. And I've also had some time to gather information. You might want to hear this." Ryan's smile faltered, but he quickly recovered, trying to maintain that sense of control. "What kind of information?" I pulled out my phone, unlocking it and showing him the images and texts I had gathered, his affair with Rachel, the messages they exchanged, the secret plans they made, all of it. His face drained of color as he saw the proof, his eyes shifting from the phone back to me, panic beginning to creep in. "Do you see, Ryan? You thought you could get away with this, that I wouldn't know. But I'm not the fool you thought I was. I've been watching. I've been collecting. And now the world is going to know exactly what you are." I watched as the reality hit him. The man who had treated me like I didn't matter, the man who had betrayed me in the worst possible way, was now scrambling to salvage whatever dignity he had left. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. There was nothing he could say to fix this, nothing he could say to undo what he had done. And that wasn't even the worst part. I pressed on, showing him more. "And this," I said, pulling up another file. It was a list of business transactions, loans, fraudulent claims, money he had funneled away from the company he worked for, all the while he was telling me that he was struggling, that we couldn't afford the life we wanted. But he had been living a lie, and now the truth was laid bare before him. "Ryan, you've been lying to me, lying to everyone. And now, it's time for the world to see you for what you really are," I said, my voice low and controlled, like the calm before a storm. I wasn't going to end his career entirely. I wasn't that cruel. But I made sure that every company he had ever worked for, every connection he had, would know exactly who he was. And I made sure that Rachel knew just how much of a liar Ryan had been, too. She had to know the man she was sleeping with wasn't the person he portrayed himself to be. The final blow came when I handed him the papers. He looked at them, confusion crossing his face. "What's this?" he asked. "Your resignation letter," I said simply. "Effective immediately." Ryan sat there, frozen, unable to comprehend what had just happened. He had tried to move on, tried to build a new life with Rachel, but I had made sure that it was all going to come crashing down. The perfect little world he had created for himself was about to fall apart. His reputation, his career, everything he had worked for, was slipping through his fingers, just like he had let our marriage slip through his. I stood up to leave, feeling that final surge of power. But as I turned to walk away, I spoke one last time. "You should have signed up for me, Ryan. You should have signed up for the real thing, instead of throwing it all away. But now you know. You can't escape the consequences." And with that, I walked away. The days that followed felt like a strange kind of release. It was like lifting a heavy weight off my shoulders, but at the same time, it felt like I had gained something back: my power, my dignity, my sense of self. The hurt still lingered, but it wasn't consuming me anymore. I wasn't broken. I wasn't the woman he had tried to leave behind. I was better. Stronger. Ryan's life, on the other hand, wasn't so smooth. His affair came to light. His reputation crumbled. His career took a sharp nosedive. The woman he had left me for wasn't as forgiving as he had hoped. As it turned out, Rachel wasn't looking for a man who could lie to her either. And I watched from a distance, not with glee, but with a quiet sense of peace. He had made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. But the real victory wasn't in seeing him pay for what he had done, it was in knowing that I had the strength to move on. To rise from the ashes of my heartbreak, and rebuild. I realized, in the end, that the real power came from within. No one could take that away from me. And so, as I walked forward into my life, no longer defined by Ryan's abandonment, no longer shackled by the pain, what I had learned was simple: revenge is not about taking from someone what they took from you. It's about reclaiming what you thought you had lost. The weeks that followed my confrontation with Ryan felt surreal. There was a strange sense of peace in knowing that everything had fallen into place. I'd spent so much of my life in the shadows of Ryan's actions, believing that I was the one at fault, that somehow, I wasn't enough. But after everything that had happened, I realized something important: he wasn't the problem. I was never the problem. I had been strong all along, just waiting for the right moment to stand up for myself, to reclaim everything he tried to take from me. And I did it. Not with anger, but with quiet strength. Not through destruction, but through the power of truth and self-empowerment. I had finally taken control of my own story. And that, I realized, was the sweetest form of revenge. Ryan's life, on the other hand, had crumbled in ways I hadn't even anticipated. After I exposed the truth, he found himself stripped of everything he had once held dear. His career fell apart almost overnight, a casualty of the secrets he thought he could keep hidden. The affair he had tried to sweep under the rug became public knowledge, and no amount of charm could salvage the damage done. As for Rachel, I didn't want to revel in her misery, but the truth was, I had given her the gift of knowing exactly who she was with. She had been deceived, just like I had, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for her. I wasn't about to offer her a shoulder to cry on, but I couldn't deny the odd satisfaction of seeing Ryan get a taste of his own medicine. No one deserves to be treated like that, not by the one person they trust most. I didn't reach out to Ryan. I didn't need to. He tried to call a few times, left messages begging for forgiveness, but I didn't answer. What could he possibly say? The damage was done, and I had no interest in anything he had to offer anymore. I was done. I spent the next few months rediscovering who I was. For so long, I had defined myself by my relationship, by my marriage. But once that part of my life was ripped away, I had to find out who I was when I wasn't someone's wife. I focused on my career. I took up hobbies I had long forgotten. I traveled, visited places I had always dreamed of, and embraced the freedom that I hadn't realized I had been missing. I made new friends, reconnected with old ones, and realized just how much love and support I had all around me. People who saw me for who I truly was, not as the woman who was defined by someone else's actions. Eventually, I met someone new. But this time, I wasn't looking for validation or someone to fix my broken heart. I was looking for someone who would add to my life, not complete it. And I found that. Slowly but surely, my heart began to heal, not because of someone else, but because I learned to heal myself first. Looking back at everything that happened, I don't regret any of it. The betrayal, the pain, the anger, it all led me to the person I am today. The woman who can look back and say, I survived. I'm stronger than I ever imagined. Ryan will never know the depths of the pain he caused, but he will also never know the strength it ignited in me. And that's the real victory. So if you're out there, feeling like the world has knocked you down, remember this: the hardest battles create the strongest warriors. You are not defined by what someone else does to you. You are defined by how you rise. And when you rise, you reclaim everything. You reclaim your life. Your power. Your peace. That's the real revenge. And it's far sweeter than anything I could have imagined.